fun to do bad things, to drive into a car.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the GS300 and how much did the swap cost. So right now the GS300, it runs, it drives. It does need a few things, and don't mind my voice. I am actually really sick right now, and I thought the best thing to do right now is to make videos for you guys while I'm out sick for about 5 days. So the GS300 runs, it drives. I drove it on its own power around the block, around the neighborhood. I went to the second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and not fifth. So it runs and drives, but I am waiting for a few more parts to make it comfortable. So the things that you don't really need, but I want to make it look as OEM as possible. Right now, my homie Nico is not extending, but he is curving the shifter to come out of the OEM hole, which I'll show in another video. And also we are getting a new cross member and trans mount, just because you don't need it, but I wanted to have nicer transmission bushings because mine are kind of shit. This is going to be everything to get from automatic GS300 to a manual IS300, the bare minimum to get it running how I just did it. Okay, before all the stuff that we get into, the first thing you need to do is source the transmission, right? The route I went with the W58, and mine was out of an older Super Celica, so it's the very first gen W58. Ideally, they're pretty much the same. The ratios are pretty much the same. The constructions are almost the same, besides the center plate is like either steel or aluminum. I don't know the details, but they work. All right, so with the GS300, there's a few things you need to do first before you can even get started on the manual swap. You can go about it different ways. I went about it the most easiest route, but it's also not the most cost-effective route. So of course, anything on this list you can get cheaper, you can get more expensive. I went with what my budget allowed me to get. So I got the GS300 handbrake relocation kit from Heat Lightning Speed Shop. So that basically relocates the foot parking brake to a handbrake. But what you need to do is you need to get a SC300 handbrake, as well as the cable and the splitter from the SC300. Or an SC400, because that's where I got mine from. And the bracket itself cost me $200 from Heat Lightning Speed Shop. And to get the handbrake from Pick and Pull with the wires and everything, that cost me $40. You also need to add a clutch in. There's a couple ways you can do it. I went with the most easiest bolt-in solution, which is Heat Lightning Speed Shop. It is a little bit pricey. There's other options like Excessive, where they make, where you can drill through the firewall and stuff. But if you have a GS300 and you look on the other side of the firewall where the brake is and where the clutch master would go, there's absolutely no room, which is why I went with the Heat Lightning Speed Shop. It's basically a remote slave and reservoir where the slave is attached to the clutch underneath the car, and it bolts in where the factory foot pedal would go. And yeah, it's super easy kit to use. It routes the remote reservoir inside the engine bay, and that way everything is nice and clean. You don't have to cut into anything except to mount your reservoir inside the engine bay. And you'll see all that in the video I posted on how to manual swap the GS300. So the clutch pedal kit was $440, so it's a little bit expensive. And also, what you want to buy from Heat Lightning Speed Shop is their slave to AN adapter. So basically, it adapts a slave cylinder to an AN fitting, so you can route an AN line from your clutch all the way to the slave cylinder on the transmission. All right, so next you're going to want to choose the clutch you want to run and your pressure plate. So the pressure plate you choose is very important because it's going to determine what slave you run. So the clutch I chose to go with was Exedi OE clutch. It's basically an OEM replacement for an SC300, and that cost me $175. And then on top of that, I had to get a flywheel. And the flywheel I chose was off an SC300 as well, and that cost me $110. So because the car wasn't manual to begin with, what you're going to need is you're going to need new flywheel bolts. And I bought flywheels from ARP, which cost me $37. And then also you're going to need pressure plate bolts to bolt the pressure plate to the flywheel. That cost me $9. Next, you're gonna want to choose your slave. I went with the ASIN slave. Make sure you choose a slave that matches your flywheel, because the rod on the slave is going to determine its length. So if you bought a IS300 flywheel, that flywheel is thicker. It's called a dual match flywheel, and you're gonna need a shorter rod to press on it. So I went with the SC300, which is a single disc flywheel, or a single match flywheel. It's a lot thinner, so it comes with a longer rod on the slave. So I went with an ASIN slave for an SC300, and that cost me $36. So this is where a lot of the customization parts are gonna come, especially if you use a Celica Supra transmission. The shifter sits super far forward. If you use a stock shifter location, it's gonna pretty much be right in front of the radio. And if you have someone that can make you a shifter that bends back, great. But what I did was I had the homie, my friend Nico, he extended the shifter housing, so that way the housing sits farther back. We extended it 3 inches, and it puts the shifter in a perfect location for me to shift. And that can vary in price depending on if you have friends that can weld, if you take it to a shop. There is an online service by, I think the shop is called Fabworks or something, Def Fabworks. I'll put the link in the description. They also charge $265, so that's my baseline. I'm going to say around $265 to extend your shifter. The last thing we needed to put the car together was a dry shaft, and I went with Drift Motion just because they have experience doing the 58 swaps on the GS300. They know the exact length and what needs to be, and that cost me $712. You could go with a dry shaft shop, you can go with different brands, but that's just the route I went. Last thing I got was an automatic emulator, because it is an automatic ECU, so it needs to, calculate the gears and all that stuff, and it has something to do with VVTi. So if you don't add this, basically you're gonna lose VVTi. And so right now I just jumped the neutral switch, and the car starts and drives, but it's in limp mode pretty much. It goes through all the gears, I don't have all the power from VVTi. And so there's different companies that make it. Mine was $150, and I have resistors to help turn off all the check engine lights, which were about $30. All right, so all in all, how much did I spend? So if you calculate everything that I just said, minus the transmission, because the transmission is going to vary in prices. If you get a Mark IV Supra transmission, you're going to spend like $1,000 almost. Tripod versions are different. W55, W58, whatever you find, it's going to be a different variation. So add the transmission price to on top of the price that I paid. You can go cheaper, you can go more expensive. This is not like the only route you can go. So I paid $2,235. Yes, kind of expensive, but do I think it's worth it? Hell yeah. How many people have a manual GS300? I mean, there's quite a few people. There's a handful of people that do, but it's not a lot. And I think it's such a cool thing to have. It's not hard to do, and it's fun. It's a big body manual 2JZ car, which is something that I love, and it's fun to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something from it. I hope you guys are inspired to manual swap your car. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.